Stop scrolling. Yes, you. Before this video plays for even 10 more seconds, I need you to put down whatever else is pulling at your attention, because what you're about to hear was not meant for everyone watching tonight. It was meant for you. Out of every video on this platform, out of every thumbnail you passed over in the last few minutes, something stopped your thumb right here. You did not choose this video by accident. Tonight, Archangel Michael has a message, and it is time for you to receive it. I know how that sounds. I know there is a voice in your head right now that wants to dismiss this as another video making a big promise it cannot keep. That voice is not wrong to be cautious, but I want you to notice something before you decide whether to trust what follows. Notice the timing. Notice that you are watching this at the exact moment you needed to hear it, on a night when something inside you has been restless, unsettled, searching for an answer you could not quite name. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you exactly why tonight is different from every other night you have scrolled past a video like this one. And I'm going to tell you what Michael wants you to understand before the sun rises again. Here is the truth most people never hear, and it is the reason this message exists at all. Archangel Michael is not a gentle whisper in the wind. He is called the warrior of heaven for a reason. He is the one sent when the battle is real, when the stakes are too high for a soft word, when someone on earth is standing at the edge of giving up and heaven decides that person cannot be left to fight alone. If you are watching this tonight, it is because somewhere in your life a battle has been raging that most people around you cannot see. You have been smiling in rooms while carrying weight no one offered to help you hold. You have been praying words that felt like they were bouncing off the ceiling. You have been asking, quietly, desperately, whether anyone up there is even listening. Tonight, you get your answer, and the answer is yes. But before I give you Michael's message, I need you to understand something about how you got here, because it changes everything about how you receive what comes next. Nothing in your life these past few weeks has been random. Not the doors that closed when you expected them to open. Not the people who walked away when you needed them to stay. Not the silence you have been sitting in, wondering if your prayers were even reaching anywhere at all. Every one of those moments was preparation, not punishment. Heaven does not waste pain. When you are being prepared for something large, the road there rarely feels like blessing. It feels like loss, like delay, like being forgotten. And that feeling, the one you have been carrying, is precisely the feeling Michael was sent to address tonight. Let me tell you about a woman named Sarah, because her story is closer to yours than you might expect. Sarah spent 3 years watching everything she built slowly come apart. Her business failed. The relationship she thought would become a marriage ended without warning. Her closest friend stopped answering her calls. She told me later that the hardest part was not any single loss. It was the silence that followed all of them, the sense that heaven had simply moved on to someone else's story and left her standing in the wreckage of her own. She stopped praying the way she used to. She still believed, technically, the way you believe a fact you were taught as a child, but she no longer expected anything to change. Then one night, unable to sleep, she found herself watching a video much like this one. She almost closed it. She told herself she had heard messages like this before and nothing had ever come of them. But something told her to stay for one more minute. In that minute, she heard a message about preparation disguised as abandonment, about seasons of silence that come right before seasons of breakthrough, and something in her chest loosened for the first time in months. She did not get her business back that night. She did not get an apology from the people who hurt her. But she got something more important. She got her hope back, and within 6 months, doors she had given up on entirely began opening in ways she could never have orchestrated herself. She still says today that the turning point was not the moment her circumstances changed. It was the moment she believed change was still possible. I'm telling you this because I suspect you are closer to where Sarah was than you are willing to admit out loud. You have been functioning. You have been getting through your days, showing up, doing what needs to be done. But underneath that functioning, there is a tiredness that sleep does not fix. Because it is not a tiredness of the body. It is a tiredness of waiting for something that keeps not arriving. If that is you, I want you to hear this clearly. The waiting is almost over, and Michael was sent tonight to tell you why the waiting was never wasted in the first place. Before I go further, let me tell you about someone else. Because this message is not only for those who feel abandoned in love or business, it is also for the ones carrying quiet exhaustion nobody sees. There was a man named David who worked the same job for 11 years, showing up early, staying late, doing everything right, and watching promotion after promotion go to people who had done less than he had. He told himself it did not matter, that he was building character, that his time would come, but privately, he was breaking. He started to believe that being overlooked was simply his portion in life, that some people were destined for recognition, and he was not one of them. He stopped applying for the roles he wanted because rejection had taught him not to hope. Then, on a night he could not explain, he felt compelled to pray again after months of going through the motions. And the very next week, an opportunity appeared that had nothing to do with the promotions he had been chasing. It was better than anything he had asked for, and it came from a direction he never would have predicted. David says now that the years of being overlooked were not wasted years. They were the years he built the discipline, the humility, and the resilience that the new opportunity actually required. If he had received recognition earlier, he does not believe he would have been ready to carry what came later. I tell you his story because if you have been overlooked, passed by, underestimated, I want you to consider that the delay was never a verdict on your worth. It was construction happening where you could not see the blueprint. There is a third story I want to share before we go further, because I think it will resonate with a part of you that the first two stories did not quite reach. There was a young man, barely into his 20s, who had grown up being told his dreams were unrealistic. Not cruelly, not by enemies, but by well-meaning family members who wanted to protect him from disappointment. Every time he mentioned wanting to create something of his own, he was gently redirected towards something safer, something more practical, something more likely to succeed. By the time he reached his mid-20s, he had built a life that looked stable from the outside and felt hollow from the inside. He described it later as living inside someone else's blueprint for his life, one that had been handed to him with good intentions but had never actually belonged to him. The turning point did not come through a dramatic event. It came through a slow accumulation of small, quiet nudges. A conversation here, a memory there, a persistent thought he could no longer ignore, until one day he finally admitted to himself that safety had cost him something he could not keep pretending not to notice. He did not abandon his responsibilities. He did not make reckless decisions overnight. But he began slowly and deliberately, making room in his life for the thing he had buried for a decade. Today, that buried thing is the center of his work, and he says the years he spent doubting it were not wasted because they taught him to want it for reasons deeper than approval from people who had never fully understood the dream in the first place. I share these three stories with you, Sarah, David, and this young man, not because your story needs to look identical to theirs, but because underneath the specific details, the pattern is always the same. Delay is mistaken for denial. Silence is mistaken for absence. Preparation is mistaken for punishment. And in every single case, the turning point was never a dramatic miracle that arrived out of nowhere. It was a decision made quietly, on an ordinary night, not unlike this one, to keep believing when belief had stopped feeling reasonable. There are three signs heaven gives to the people it is preparing for something greater, and I want to walk through each one slowly, because I believe you will recognize yourself in at least two of them tonight. The first sign is isolation that feels heavier than it should, not simple loneliness, but a specific kind of separation, where people who used to understand you suddenly stop understanding you at all. Conversations that once felt easy start to feel like translation work. You find yourself surrounded by people yet feeling entirely unseen. This is not a flaw in you. It is not proof that something is wrong with how you relate to others. It is a sign that you are being repositioned. Heaven often removes people from your daily life, not because they were bad for you, but because your next season requires relationships they were never meant to be part of. If you have felt this isolation recently, this is your first confirmation that you are exactly where Michael's message says you are. The second sign is a growing dissatisfaction with things that used to satisfy you. The job that once felt like enough no longer feels like enough. The distractions that used to numb the ache now barely touch it. This is not ingratitude, it is expansion. You are outgrowing a version of your life that was never meant to be permanent. And the discomfort you feel is the discomfort of a container that is too small for what is trying to grow inside you. Most people mistake this feeling for depression or failure. It is neither. It is the internal signal that a larger version of your life is already being assembled, even while the current version feels unbearable. The third sign, and the one Michael specifically asked to be spoken plainly tonight, is a persistent thought that will not leave you alone no matter how many times you try to bury it under busyness. A dream, a calling, a sense of purpose you have talked yourself out of 100 times because it felt too big, too unlikely, too far from where you currently stand. If there is something you have wanted to do, wanted to become, wanted to build, and it keeps returning to your mind even after you have dismissed it repeatedly, that persistence is not stubbornness on your part. It is heaven refusing to let you settle for less than what you were made for. Now, before I go further, I want to address the doubt that is almost certainly rising in you right now, because ignoring it would be dishonest, and this message was never meant to be dishonest with you. You might be thinking that this all sounds encouraging, but encouraging words have not paid your bills or repaired your relationships or given you back the years you feel like you lost. I understand that skepticism, and I am not going to pretend it away, but I want you to consider something. Every person who eventually looked back on their hardest season and called it the turning point of their life felt exactly the way you feel right now while they were still inside it. They did not have proof yet. They had only a choice. The same choice standing in front of you tonight, to either close this video and return to believing nothing will change, or to let one more ounce of hope in and see what happens when you do. This is the part of the message that Michael was most insistent be delivered without softening it, so I'm not going to soften it. There is a version of your life happening in the spiritual realm that has already been decided, already been prepared, already been assigned to you. The delay you're experiencing on earth is not heaven changing its mind. It is heaven finishing the preparation on the other side before releasing it into yours. Timing that feels late to you is never late from where Michael stands, because timing there is measured by readiness, not by the calendar sitting on your wall. You are being made ready right now, in this very season you wish would end faster, for something you are not yet strong enough, wise enough, or healed enough to hold. That is not a punishment. That is love with better eyesight than yours. I want to pause here and be honest about something most videos like this one will not tell you, because it is uncomfortable, but comfort has never been what actually changes a life. Receiving this message does not mean your circumstances change the moment this video ends. What changes first is you. The breakthrough on the outside is almost always preceded by a breakthrough on the inside that nobody claps for, nobody notices, nobody congratulates you on. It happens quietly, in moments exactly like this one, where you decide to believe again even though nothing visible has proven you should. That decision, made in private, in the dark, while no one is watching, is the hinge on which everything else turns. There is one more thing Michael revealed, and it is the part most people are not ready to hear. So I'm asking you to stay with me, even though everything in you might want to rush ahead to the encouraging ending. The season you are in right now is also a test of who you become when no one is applauding you for enduring it. Anyone can hold on to faith when circumstances are easy. The real test, the one that actually shapes character, happens in exactly the kind of silence you have been sitting in. Every great calling in Scripture was preceded by a wilderness. Every person who was eventually trusted with something significant first proved, in obscurity, that they would not abandon their integrity when no reward was visible. If you have felt forgotten these past months, I want you to reconsider what that forgetting actually was. It was not neglect. It was examination. And if you're still here, still watching, still believing even a little, you are passing the examination whether you realize it or not. I want to take a moment to explain why Michael, specifically out of everything in the spiritual realm, was the one sent with this message. Because understanding this changes how you receive the rest of it. Michael's role has never been to comfort in the soft, passive sense. His role has been to stand between the person he protects and whatever is trying to stop them from reaching what was promised to them. If you have felt an unusual amount of resistance lately, obstacles appearing from directions you never expected, delays stacking on top of delays, exhaustion that seems disproportionate to your actual circumstances, that resistance is not a sign you are on the wrong path. In many cases, it is the opposite. Resistance escalates precisely when someone is closer to their breakthrough, not further from it. Because whatever opposes your growth understands what you are about to step into even before you fully do. Michael's presence in your life right now is not decorative, it is protective. It means the resistance you have been facing has already met something stronger than itself standing between you and it. Before I speak to the specific pain you may be carrying, I want to say one more thing about why this particular message tends to find people at such precise moments. Because I think it will settle something in you. Many people assume that spiritual timing works the way a scheduled appointment works, arriving at a fixed hour, regardless of what state the person receiving it is in. It does not work that way. Messages like this one find people when two things line up at once. When the person is finally tired enough to stop pretending everything is fine, and when they are also, quietly, still willing to hope, even a little. If you had watched this exact video a year ago in a different frame of mind, it might have meant nothing to you. Tonight, it means something, and that difference is not about the video. It is about where you are standing right now, at the exact intersection of exhaustion and willingness that makes a person able to actually receive what is being offered, rather than simply hearing it and moving on. I want to speak directly to the specific pain you might be carrying tonight, because generalities only go so far, and Michael's message was never meant to stay general. If you are carrying grief over someone you lost, whether to death or distance or simply time, I want you to know that grief is not a sign your faith failed. It is evidence of how deeply you loved, and love that deep does not disappear. It transforms into strength you will need for what comes next. If you are carrying financial fear, lying awake, calculating numbers that do not add up, I want you to know that provision is rarely delivered on the schedule fear demands, but it is delivered. And the very fact that you have made it through every difficult month until this one is proof of a faithfulness that has never once actually failed you, even when it felt distant. If you are carrying the specific exhaustion of being the strong one for everybody else, while no one asks how you're actually holding up, I want you to know that you are allowed to be tired. Strength does not mean the absence of exhaustion. It means continuing anyway, and you have been continuing anyway for longer than anyone has acknowledged. And if you are carrying the quiet fear that you have simply run out of time, that the season for your dream has passed, that you waited too long and the door has closed for good, I want you to hear this plainly. Doors that were assigned to you do not close permanently because you needed extra time to become who the assignment requires. What is truly yours will still be waiting once you are ready to walk through it. If any part of what I have said tonight has landed somewhere true in you, I want you to do something small right now before the feeling passes and life pulls your attention elsewhere. I want you to say, either out loud or quietly in your mind, that you receive this. Not because saying words changes anything by magic, but because the act of receiving, of allowing yourself to hope again after deciding it was safer not to, is itself the shift Michael was sent to help you make. If you're comfortable doing so, type the words "I received this" in the comments below. Not for me, not for the algorithm, but for yourself. So that a version of you scrolling through this exact video months from now, in a completely different season, can see the moment you decided to believe again. There is a reason this message uses the phrase "chosen one," and I want to clear up a misunderstanding before we close, because it matters. Being chosen was never about being better than anyone else, more deserving, more righteous, more impressive than the people around you. It has always meant being selected for a purpose that requires exactly the kind of person your hardest seasons have been shaping you into. The isolation taught you discernment. The dissatisfaction taught you to stop settling. The persistent dream taught you what you actually value when everything unnecessary gets stripped away. None of that was accidental preparation. It was targeted preparation, aimed precisely at the assignment, waiting for you on the other side of this season. I also want you to understand what being chosen does not mean, because false expectations can quietly poison real faith. It does not mean your life will suddenly become free of difficulty. It does not mean the people who hurt you will apologize on cue, or that every closed door reopens exactly as you imagined it would. Being chosen means you were selected to carry something meaningful through a world that will still contain hardship, and that you were given the strength for that specific assignment, even when you cannot yet see where the strength is coming from. Do not mistake this message for a promise of an easy road ahead. Mistake it, instead, for a promise that you were never walking the hard road alone, even on the nights it felt that way. I want to close with something practical, because encouragement without action tends to fade by morning, and I do not want that to happen to you. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to write down the 3 signs I described, isolation, dissatisfaction, and the persistent dream, and next to each one, write down where you have seen it show up in your own life recently. This is not busy work. It is the beginning of paying attention to the pattern heaven has already been showing you, a pattern you may have been too tired or too discouraged to notice until tonight. Then I want you to write one sentence about what you would attempt if you genuinely believed the delay was almost over. Not a plan with every detail worked out, just one honest sentence about what you would dare to try. Keep that sentence somewhere you will see it again, because in the coming weeks, I believe you're going to need the reminder of what you were brave enough to write down on the night everything started to shift. I want to give you one more practice, because messages like this one tend to fade within a few days, if nothing anchors them, each morning for the next 7 days, before you check your phone, before the noise of the day reaches you. I want you to say a short sentence to yourself, something as simple as, "I am being prepared, not abandoned." Say it even on the mornings you do not feel it, especially on those mornings, because faith that only shows up when it is easy was never really being tested in the first place. By the 7th day, I believe you will notice something shifting, not necessarily in your circumstances yet, but in the way you carry them. That shift in how you carry your circumstances is usually the first visible evidence that the deeper shift Michael described tonight has already begun. I also want to address something that often gets left out of messages like this one, and it is this. Preparation is not passive. Believing that you are being prepared does not mean sitting still and waiting for circumstances to rearrange themselves around you while you do nothing. It means positioning yourself so that when the door opens, you are ready to walk through it, rather than standing there unprepared, watching an opportunity you spent years hoping for slip past you because you were not ready to receive it. If there is a skill connected to your dream that you have been putting off learning, begin now in whatever small way is available to you. If there is a relationship that needs repairing before you can move forward with a clear conscience, take the first step toward that repair. If there is a habit quietly working against the future you say you want, this is the night to be honest with yourself about it. None of this has to happen all at once, and none of it needs to be perfect. It only needs to begin. Heaven prepares the door. You are responsible for showing up ready to walk through it. I want to also gently remind you that the signs I described tonight, isolation, dissatisfaction, and the persistent dream, are not meant to be diagnosed once and then forgotten. Return to them in a week, return to them in a month. You may find that the isolation has started to soften as new, more aligned relationships begin to enter your life. You may find that the dissatisfaction has started to sharpen into clarity about exactly what you are meant to build next. You may find that the persistent dream has stopped feeling like a distant fantasy and started feeling like an actual plan with actual steps. These shifts are usually gradual, not sudden. And if you are only watching for a single dramatic moment of arrival, you may miss the quieter, steadier signs that the preparation is already working. Before you go, I want to say clearly what this message is and is not. It is not a promise that every problem disappears tomorrow. It is not a guarantee with a timestamp attached. What it is a reminder delivered on a night when you needed it more than you were letting yourself admit, that you have not been forgotten, that the delay has not been abandonment, and that the very fact you found your way to this exact video, at this exact hour, carrying this exact weight, is itself a form of evidence that something is paying closer attention to your life than you have given it credit for. If this message reached something real in you tonight, consider staying close to this channel, because messages like this one are not scheduled by convenience. They arrive when they are needed, and there will be more nights ahead when you need exactly this kind of reminder. Subscribe if you want to be here for the next one, not out of obligation, but because you already know there will be another season. Harder or easier. When a message like this one finds you at precisely the right moment again, and if someone you know has been carrying a weight like the one we talked about tonight, consider sending this to them, because sometimes the way heaven answers a person's quiet prayer is through someone else simply remembering them at the right moment. Wherever you are right now, whatever room you're sitting in, whatever thoughts you carried into this video that you have not said out loud to anyone, I want you to carry this one thing with you when it ends. You were not too late. You were not forgotten. You were being prepared in the exact silence that felt like abandonment, for something too significant to be released before you were ready to receive it. Tonight, that preparation is closer to finished than it has ever been. Go into tomorrow believing that, even if the only evidence you have is the fact that you stayed until the very last word of this message, that in itself is enough. That is how it always begins.